So before jumping in, if you hear a weird rumbling sound, it's the wind. For some reason today it's really bad and it's not easing up, so I just have to record while it's going. Anyway, so I'm well behind the curve with this review, but it's been a busy couple weeks. The suborbital disaster that is Anthem is whizzing by overhead. I have to get cracking on Metro Exodus, and there is another Division 2 beta available within a matter of days with its full release not long after. As a result, this review of Far Cry New Dawn comes long after the point where it should have been released if my goal, much akin to modern mainstream media, was to be first at any cost. So let's dive in. Far Cry New Dawn, first and foremost, is a glorified DLC. It earns some points for being self-aware enough to put forth a price tag of $40 instead of $60, but the criticism that the game reuses so much from Far Cry 5 that it falls within the realm of an add-on, more so than an independent title, well, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Saying the game is closer to a massive mod rather than an actual self-sufficient release isn't malicious criticism, however. DLC content has had its moments in the past, and I don't feel that Far Cry New Dawn is problematic purely because the map topography is the same, or that it is a spin-off of the most recent Far Cry experience. In fact, evaluating Far Cry New Dawn for what it is, a sort of filler release spin-off for $40, I'm not utterly disappointed. First, let's discuss the campaign. The story mode in New Dawn is... alright, well, narratively speaking, it's pretty weak. Then again, realistically, what percentage of releases nowadays have well-written stories? Not many, we can firmly say that. The problem is current outrage culture. The idea of how anything and everything could offend someone or anyone at any time for any given reason, and it's all just convoluted and annoying. Some of the best stories ever written or told had weight because of their portrayal of morality, their daring ability to ask questions, provoke thought, and conjure up emotion by being rough around the edges or willfully on the fringes of what makes us comfortable. Far Cry New Dawn does absolutely none of that. You start in with the choice of choosing body type instead of male or female, which is not something to be outright upset over, I guess, but is perfectly emblematic of Ubisoft's recent trajectory of trying to never possibly offend anyone at any time for any reason, and it really shows. The story continues and you meet the well-advertised main villains, a pair of sisters who somehow feel like MTV BMX reality show contestants, but not the winning contestants, the ones that got kicked off in episode 2 because the audience gave them really bad ratings. The whole concept of New Dawn is that it's a brave new world governed by a rogue faction led by these two sisters that has developed in the aftermath of the nukes dropping in Far Cry 5. But it's really hard to embrace the post-apocalyptic theme or view these villains as tough, powerful, or intense when there is fucking neon pink everywhere. Now, the color scheme certainly gives the game some sense of character, I guess, but I'll just say that the character it gives isn't appealing to me. However, I am fully aware this portion is highly subjective, so take that for what you will. If you like Mad Max-style apocalyptic themes, you won't enjoy this. If you like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon TV shows, but wanted that type of vibe in a post-nuclear war adult video game, you'll probably love it. Either way, the game, I guess, at least knows what it is. The story continues, and I won't go down the rabbit hole of spoilers here just to make it an easier watch for anyone who does find themselves wanting to experience the game, but there is very little character building. There are a handful of times where you even interact with each character, whether it be an ally or an antagonist, and by the end you probably won't remember any names or give a single shit about any of the other people in the world. You might, but it's really doubtful. As for mission design, here's where there are some really cool elements. We have recently seen titles like Anthem where every mission is just a composite hybrid of 3 different segments: gather the things and plug them into another thing, gather the things and drop them in a tentacle pool, or stand on a point till a beacon charges. Far Cry New Dawn actually has some cool missions. There is point defense, search and destroy stuff, and all the typical formats, but the moment I actually thought, wait, there is some good design here, is when I was stuck getting out of a flooded bunker, and there were legitimate puzzles, with a sense of urgency. There was a jump scare, and even more components after that meshed into a mission that felt, well, it felt pretty good. It didn't help build up the world lore or create character attachment and emotion, but it was a well-designed mission that felt good to play. There are a decent number of puzzles that are interesting enough so as to not feel like a waste of time, but also have the infinitely valuable system of pointing you in the right direction if you take too long and clearly have no idea what to do. It's a small thing, but when games have puzzles and don't guide you, at least slightly, when you are clearly struggling, that always pisses me off, and New Dawn actually had the framework in place and it felt comfortable. Now we have to discuss one certain mission format during the main story, and that is the base building type. At certain points, you'll have to build up your base to advance the story events. First, it's only a few upgrades, but then it's a bunch, and upgrades require ethanol. And ethanol you get from the open world, and primarily from outposts. While gathering ethanol, it's not terrible or particularly boring, but it's still an artificial way to inflate campaign length with a soft wall. The missions where your objective is to go do whatever you want till you have enough materials to do some arbitrary number of tasks in the base are annoying and lazy. A perfect example can be seen in Anthem right now, where the Legionnaire tombs are being lambasted from every angle by critics, and it's a very similar concept in New Dawn, except gathering ethanol is a simpler format for it, rather than tedious achievements, and gathering ethanol can actually be fun. But anyways, after you finally get through the pseudo barriers, you can finish the campaign, and it's really not thrilling. It's not awful, I guess, but it's nothing that will stick in your brain longer than an hour or so before it becomes another one of those, yeah, I played it, but I can't really remember what happened type of games when you discuss it with friends. So with all that said, you may be asking why I am not ridiculing the game as a totally unworthy release that just reskinned Far Cry 5. Well, it's pretty simple. The RPG mechanics in conjunction with the outposts and roaming the open world. Far Cry New Dawn has taken a step down the RPG road with various different mechanics, and while it did simplify the perk system, it has added in a gear rarity curve. There are some issues with this system though. For instance, it's not a smooth curve. It's not like a slow burn where as you incrementally upgrade your gear you can kill harder and harder enemies. It's like stairs. You get a blue gun, you can easily kill blue enemies, but purple enemies are really hard and yellows are basically impossible. When you get a purple gun, purple enemies are super easy, blues are an absolute joke, and yellows are still really, really tough. But you get a yellow gun, everything is easy and there's no challenge even on the hardest difficulty. This makes the gear feel really good early on. Getting the next weapon upgrade makes you feel like a god, and it creates a power fantasy that is really fun for at least the first few hours. In conjunction with this, the best way to get ethanol for those upgrades is the outposts, and the outposts are probably the most fun activity overall in the entire game. Basically, with outposts, you attack, capture it, then scrap it, and it gets retaken by enemies, but next time there are more, they are stronger, and they have different tactics or gear. It's another activity that is quite fun for at least a few hours, especially as you go from blue to purple to yellow gear, but that fun is not indefinite. You will get bored. And if you do get bored of it too quickly, well, then you have to find ethanol other ways, which is beyond tedious. So yeah, don't get bored of that before doing probably at least most of the 10 outposts a couple of different times. Now we get to one of the most confusing parts of New Dawn though, and that is the microtransactions. Basically, the microtransactions let you grab, among other things, the strongest gear in the game right away for real-world dollars. Now, I disagree with having microtransactions like this in pretty much any game, but it's not multiplayer PvP specifically, so pay to win, I guess, isn't as big of a deal. But consider this for a second. You buy an open-world RPG where the fun is progression, and then they give you the option to skip what you paid for by paying more. What? Since you aren't competing with anyone else, there is no sense of urgency. It literally boils down to paying extra to skip the most fun components of the game that you just bought yourself. But it's not outrage-worthy in this instance because it really isn't ruining the game. It's not providing an unfair advantage over other players, and it's pretty clear the pacing of the game was not built in such a way as to throttle down progression overall to incentivize the purchase of these items and boosts. But to me, it's just a giant what the fuck moment to even think about the concept of having this cash shop in this game. Regardless, I have to move on because I could talk about that for hours and how dumb it is. But next is the UI. The UI is pretty good, and it's not some revolutionary concept, but New Dawn offers the ability to turn on and off most of the different HUD elements. For instance, disabling your wall hack radar or various other different components. It's good to play with the options and customize what is and is not displayed on your screen as additional information, and like I said, it's not revolutionary, it's been done before, but nevertheless, it's definitely appreciated. When it comes to any sort of political influence, a lot of people were discussing the game pre- and post-launch, saying it was indicative of the get woke, go broke idea, but I really don't see that exemplified here. It's more a situation where Ubisoft is bending over backwards to not get bad press from anyone for any reason, and as a result, the game could probably quite easily be criticized by everyone for one thing or another. It's just a mishmash of please don't get outraged themed content. Speaking of outrage, not really, but kinda, whatever, everyone in the game fucking screams, constantly. Your companions scream, the enemies scream, everyone is always constantly yelling like a battle cry while they shoot a machine gun, or they run after you, or any number of other things. It's unbelievably annoying, and at one point I actually had to just gun down my own ally because they were yelling too much and the whole thing became ungodly levels of unpleasant. Too bad there's no disable annoying screaming option in their menu. That'd be a really good one. Whoever decided to program this into the game, just rethink how you're developing. Just stop it. Why do you have all the like different, oh my, everyone screams all the time in this game and it's infuriating. Overall, Far Cry New Dawn is a neon-colored reskin of Far Cry 5 with a few cameos, some cool missions, the same map mostly, and some decent gear progression with somewhat rewarding combat during the middle phase of that progression curve. If you are a fan of Far Cry, you'll probably get 10 to 20 hours out of it depending on how fast you play and how many activities you complete. There are enough further activities on top of open world roaming to hook in the really dedicated fans at least, but it's really nothing special when you sink your teeth in and truly analyze it. My honest opinion is it isn't worth $40, but it's not a bad game. When it goes on sale for $20, pick it up. At that price, it's probably worth it. And I have also been much more forgiving than I ever would have been if the game had proclaimed itself a $60 title, but it didn't do that, so here we are. Far Cry New Dawn is probably a 5 out of 10 in my book. I guess on a bad day, if you don't like it and you really hate the theme, then it's a 4 out of 10. And on a good day, if you enjoy the systems and just love the Far Cry universe, it's a 6 or so. But keep in mind, I don't rate games on a scale of 6 to 10 like most mainstream gaming media, where a 6 is, this game is shit, but we don't want to burn bridges because we suck too much publisher. You know what I'm saying there. I rate games on a scale of 1 to 10, where 1 is utter trash and 10 is perfect, and I basically never give 10s. So a 5, that's middle of the road. It's not a cataclysmically bad rating. Anyways, that about wraps it up. My advice, wait for a sale. If you want it, grab it and get 10 or 20 hours of enjoyment. But that's it. If you want to support the channel, check out the links down below. We have merchandise, gaming communities, and some more stuff too, but I'll cut it there and I'll stop rambling. Thank you all for watching, and have a nice night.